right, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, so maybe my thing
Welcome.
stopped working. All right, welcome back to CKLA Chats. I am DLC Foster Yankee, joined by my co-host.
DLC Ashley Giles. Thanks
Right.
for joining us for lesson 5.
Yes. So we are in the final unit of fourth grade curriculum, Treasure Island. And in this video, we are going to be talking about lesson 5, which is all about interpreting figurative language.
Okay, and we start off with this is a review, figurative language, okay, from previous units. So we're going to start off with the reading component, the core text. This will be a reread, a close read of chapter 3, The Real Adventure Begins. As a reminder, the purpose for reading, students are reading closely to understand how to use figurative and descriptive language that helps to create a memorable plot and interesting characters. So just keep in mind that the same work that they're doing in their writing of their own adventure, and they are seeing these craft moves within Treasure Island as they read.
Mhm.
The reading component, there are two components for this lesson. Lesson 5, you have 45 minutes of reading, 45 minutes of writing. Reading is your usual routine, reviewing, close reading with activities and questions, discussing the chapter, and your word work today would be captivate. And then you have writing, 45 minutes as well. You're drafting a character sketch and you're doing conducting, engaging in a lesson wrap up. So we are going to dig into the first 45 minutes, which will be the reading component. From here, you're going to Cubs first, always. The student will know the descriptive words and phrases and figurative language that appears in chapter 3. So they're going to know it. They're going to be able to just say it. This is simile, this is that.
Mhm.
Then from there, they're going to understand that the meaning of the descriptive words and phrases and the figurative language that appear in the chapter. So first, they're going to just recall, we'll be able to point it out, recognize it, and now what does it mean? Okay, we're going to analyze it. What does this figurative language mean? And then they'll be able to clarify the meaning of the descriptive words and phrases by discussing figurative language and writing what they mean, hey, in small groups. So let's
Right.
dig on in. So with this component, I have carved out the discussion questions because if you notice, and I hope you have been noticing in the activity page, there's not an actual activity page that
Yep.
goes along with our objective, talking about the figurative language and the descriptive language. So there's no activity page in the activity book. So I have clipped the chapter discussion questions that all relate to our goal or our learning outcome. So these are going to be questions surrounding that figurative language and that descriptive language and why it's used, what it means. Not why it's used, but what it means. Okay? So we're going to start off with the first 5 minutes. You're going to review the chapter. Remember, this is a close read, and I need you to really pay attention to this chapter because it doesn't say, okay, read starting at the beginning. No, it states read the title of the chapter. Then it says, have the students read the second paragraph aloud. So please, when you're internalizing, mark those sections that you will be reading because we're not reading it in its entirety. After you're reading certain sections, you're posing inferential questions mainly from this chapter because it is a second read. So now let's think about why the author did this and why the characters are feeling this way. So a lot of higher level thinking questions because this is a digging deeper into the text. It is a close read. Um, so I just wanted to point that out. Then it says have students read the third paragraph. So just mark in your teacher guide what paragraphs you're reading. So the question pertains to that paragraph. A suggestion we made once before, maybe posing the question first before the students read the paragraph, and so they have a purpose for reading, and then again have them read it and then pose the question again. It'll just help them, and when you pose it first so that they can be thinking, looking ahead to what, have a purpose for reading basically.
then,
Uh,
sorry.
yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to add real quick. I am noticing, sorry, is having the students read silently. So just making sure we are giving the students the opportunity to read this on their own as opposed to playing their recording or having the teacher be the one doing the reading.
Absolutely. We're going back and forth here with the afternoon dismissal. And so basically, you go through the entire chapter, reading certain sections, posing questions, and that will conclude, the close reading of the chapter. When we get to number 3, discussing the chapter, it's going to take 10 minutes. And basically, it starts off with you have the students read page 33 aloud. Okay. And so once they read that, then you have these questions talking about the language and Long John Silver's character more in detail. So you're focusing on the language used on this page 33 and looking at the character Long John Silver. There are 3 questions here that you need to be very intentional about asking, because that will let you know it is tailored to our objective about the descriptive language and the figurative language. There is a challenge during this discussion. It says ask the students to compose another simile that could describe Silver's intelligence. So there's a question about Silver, but then you're making the kids create something else that describes them, a simile, so it's still talking about that figurative language.
I have a question.
Yes, in their own thought. Yeah, what's your question?
Sorry. Because I think like when we talked about like possible formative assessment, because there isn't the activity page, that the chapter discussion will be what you are, it'll be able to, sorry, trying to talk over this. um so I'm wondering what the teacher would measure, like how are you going to know that the students are able to what did it say, determine or clarify the meaning of descriptive words.
I mean, so first thing that I could think of, Sarah, in planning, right? Creating like this rubric with your team, like what are we looking for? Like the first question, a simile is a comparison of 2 things, usually using letter S. Identify the simile on this page. So the teacher should already know what similes are on the page and create this rubric of, there may be multiple. Like if there's only one, the teacher should already know what the simile is. I don't know. My idea, what am I assessing? I mean, I'm just saying I need to be aware of what the answers need to be. And I mean, I don't know if that's answering your questions, and create this rubric, I guess. I mean,
That's what I no, I'm just wondering, like, what is it? Like, what what are we looking for? Because I
assessing.
think 2 things, yeah, like determine or clarify the meaning of descriptive words and phrases. That's one. Then also identify figurative language that helps create a believable plot and interesting characters. So I'm thinking or wondering if any of these questions on page 3 could be used to measure those.
Let me see.
And I think maybe 3, like 3, because it is figurative language that helps create an interesting character
Uh-huh.
and determine or
What
clarify
does
the
it
meaning.
mean when Jim thinks Silver is a man to be reckoned with? And let me go back to our objective.
Or number 2, because that is a hyperbole about Long John Silver.
What helps? What? How does that language help to create a memorable plot and memorable character?
Yeah, so they could explain, that could be their task to explain how that,
Why are they memorable? Why are they
yeah,
interesting? What makes them that way based off these similes, based off these descriptions, descriptive
yeah.
language that they portray?
Like find descriptive language or figurative language that describes the character and then explain how that makes the character memorable or makes the plot interesting.
I like it. And if the student is able, first, of course, to identify it, right, and explain what it means, but more importantly, if they can explain why they're important, so answers may vary.
Yeah.
I may say, I found my idiom, I found my hyperbole, simile, whatever, and I explained what it means. But I put why it. So to me, the major factor would be my evaluation. Would that be as to why he's memorable or the plot's important or memorable or significant, basically.
Hmm.
So
And
like
then
I guess
also,
go ahead.
no, you go ahead.
No, no. Go ahead. I forgot.
I was just gonna say having them address how it makes the plot memorable or makes a character interesting, having them justify that because, like you said, answers may vary. That takes it up a level of rigor. It makes it evaluative. Like you
Love
can't
it.
get it wrong as long as you are able to justify.
Justify.
Yeah.
Yeah. Your evidence is it proven? Yes.
Mhm.
Love it. Um, so we would have to add that piece, and so that's as we internalize even more. Just discussing, we realize we need to assess the objective here. Yes, these
Yeah.
questions are here, but are any of these really tailored to what the student is expected to do? So I think we can use these questions, but add in that piece, like you said. How does this make him memorable? The character memorable, or the plot more
And
interesting?
yeah, and knowing like this is the one that I'm gonna collect, and like this is my data to know that my students were able to meet this objective.
Yes, an exit ticket in the
Yeah.
form of so. Yeah. So we'll have to add. We see we're making some enhancements here to making sure that we are satisfying our objective. And so to go on and continue, then we have our word work, which is captivate. And it's the same routine. I always put on here, what's your routine? Everybody's routine may be differently, but we are following exactly what it says. Um, at the end of this, students, they what's the synonym, antonym, part of speech. It says what the kids are doing specifically. So it's different activities. So before they do 1, 2, 3 with multiple meanings, but for this activity, you're talking about synonyms. What are other words for this word captivate? So students are going to have to come up with synonyms for the word captivate with the partner and create a sentence for each of the synonyms that your partner creates. So that he or she provides. So basically, you're going to pair them up. They're going to think of some synonyms, and they're going to have to write a sentence using each of those synonyms. And that'll conclude the reading portion. On to writing.
All right. Do you hear the announcements right now? Darn
A
it.
little bit.
I wondered if the headphones was blocking them out or like if it was
Not at all.
okay.
No.
Not at all. Darn it. All right. Let's talk about writing then over the announcements. So the focus for writing is that students are going to compose 1 or 2 paragraphs about a character using descriptive details. So directly tying into that close read that they have just done in reading and identifying descriptive details. First, they're going to draft a character sketch for 35 minutes. Let me see. Do I have another? Yeah. So students are going to turn to activity page 3.2. They're going to name some of the features that make a character memorable, drawing on information from the questions in the My Character chart. And then students are going to, well, the teacher's telling students they're going to write 1 or 2 paragraphs about their character to use in their adventure story. So really, this paragraph is just a description about their character. They should describe the features that make their character unique and memorable. Oh, let me go back. I think I maybe. And use descriptive language and specific details to make the character come alive. They are encouraged to use their answers in the My Character chart and any feedback that the teacher has provided on activity page 3.2 to guide their writing. And this part was confusing to me. Their paragraph should have a topic sentence, at least 6 detailed sentences, and a concluding sentence, because that kind of sounds like in informational writing, but they're writing about a character. So they, uh, and if they choose to write 2 paragraphs, they need to consider how to group information about the character in each paragraph so the information is presented logically. The teacher is circulating and checking in with students to support them as they write. They also have some supports in the margins, such as the teacher working directly with the group and supporting them with the graphic organizer. And the graphic organizer itself goes across like all the different ability levels. For the lesson wrap up, Students are going to exchange writing with a partner. They read their partner's paragraphs, and as they read, they're underlining examples of descriptive language. In addition, they're going to tell their partner at least one thing he or she did well and offer one or two suggestions for revision. So, my question here, as I was reading this just as a support for students, was well, they should know what descriptive language is because they've talked about it in reading, but just reviewing with them like exactly what they're looking for. I think you also mentioned this in the previous lesson. So I was like, oh, that's going to come up again in lesson 5, but having them draw the character based on what they read. So as they're reading their partner's
Oh,
description, drawing the character described, kind of like what they did in the house on Mango Street.
yes.
Like, don't tell them anything. They can only read what you wrote and they have to draw the character based
Right.
on
Yeah.
that.
Love it.
Yeah, so then they can see, well, does what they drew match the way I wanted my character to
I'm
look?
not just listening to what the teacher says.
Yeah.
This is my evidence. This is my proof. I drew exactly what you wrote.
Yeah.
Awesome. I like it.
So being like, is that what you wanted your character to look like? Is that what they look like?
Right.
If not, then that's some
Add some
revising that you need
more.
to go back to do.
Yeah. Great coaching move, for a kid
Yeah.
to conference with them and help them to do that. Add how to add that in. Great.
Yeah, because I always remember, I don't know who said this, but like when you are reading someone's write, you're not there with them to tell them. As a writer, you're not always there with the reader to tell them like what you want them to visualize. It's only on the page. So you need to make sure that those words convey what you want them to see. I think that's a good way to check and make sure that they're doing that.
Yes, absolutely.
They can also, this seems like a challenge move to me, suggest a metaphor, analogy, or other literary device their partner could include, or they could suggest their partner include the answer to one of the questions on activity page 3.2 that was not present in their writing. Students are going to write down the suggested revisions they receive for use in future lessons.
Nice.
That concludes writing.
I like how they are working together to to help craft their paragraphs. It's great.
Yeah.
Not the teachers, the students, I love it.
Yeah, and I think it's cool. Again, back to that class story, like just reading that, having the teacher
do that same work.
Yeah, do that same work, and then I think it's kind of hard to have them draw it based on because you're writing it together, but some type of way doing that same work.
My thought was, pick a student to come up to the board and we read the sentences and aloud and have the kid draw it. So just different things you could do with that.
Yep. All right, and that concludes lesson 5.
We thank you for the first week. Look forward for lesson 6 through 10. And we will see you next time. Thank you, as always, for joining us.
Yeah. Thanks for watching.
Bye-bye.